It says live.
Okay, I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. It is a good Monday. It's the
Yes.
start of the week, and it's also a good Monday because it is Mummy Mondays. This is the second episode of Mummy Mondays. And today I have a very, very, very special guest, which I will introduce. Her name is Karyn Glemaud. I will go over her bio and everything. I know that you guys have been seeing. She is an author. She co-authored a book called Mummy's New Friend with her son, Mali, who was 10 at the time, who is now 17, right, Karyn?
Yep.
And so we will get into that discussion. She has a lot of gems and a lot of experience just as a single mom turned wife, turned blended family, superwoman, just super mom, superwoman. I have learned so much from her in our interactions and conversations. So I'm very excited to see uh, the different moms interact, to hear your story and your journey and all the advice that you have to give. So again, come on in, welcome in. We are live here on the Social U Digital Facebook page. Feel free to share to your audience. We're also on YouTube as well, live streaming. And so Mommy Mondays is a virtual interviewing series. This is the second episode, and it was started and inspired by the Working Mothers doc that I've been in production for. But due to COVID and quarantine and us being inside, we do the Zoom thing, but Social Youth Digital, we're all about getting the powerful stories out on social media platforms just to bring that conversation and authenticity that we have and just show it and share it and really sharing community in this mom community. So I'm excited to have you, Karyn.
I'm
I am
honored to be here. Thank you for
so
having
excited.
me.
How are you doing, first of all?
It's a wonderful day to be alive. I'm just happy. I'm blessed. I'm not no complaints here. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Once, Avery, graduated from, K1, I was just like,
Oh
okay,
my
I can kind
god.
of calm down a little bit. You know what I
Start
mean? Because
coasting.
the worst, I'm sorry.
Start coasting a little bit.
Yes,
Not
yes.
really.
Actually getting my brain back a little bit because, you're juggling working from home and
Yeah.
then making your own curriculum and then having to make these Zoom meetings. And a lot of times they're so young, their attention span is like, it's like, look at the screen, look at the screen. I mean, they can look at the screen if it's the show that they want to watch, but
Exactly.
it's different when it's like school and classes in session. So
Happening.
I salute all moms and parents who are at home with their kids and,
Yep,
doing the best that they can to juggle. So
exactly.
without further ado, I'm just going to read your bio a little bit.
Okay.
And then we can just get right into it. Get right into it. All righty. So, Karyn Glemaud is a proud Haitian Bostonian and published author. Her most recent work, Mummy's New Friend, co-authored with her son, Mali, is a warm-hearted and funny children's book about a young boy who is introduced to his single mother's boyfriend for the first time. Karyn is an avid music lover, reader, and traveler with an adventurous and bold spirit that has taken her as far as living across organic farms in New Zealand and in the chic city of Paris with her son as a single mother. She has since found love again and is settled outside of Boston with her husband. Together, they are raising a blended family of 4 sons, 2 teenagers, and 2 toddlers. Wow, salute to you, especially at this time. Karyn is currently pursuing an MBA at Babson while working as a full-time program and events manager at MIT. Superwoman much? I would say so. So I turn it over to you and you can kind of add to that and introduce yourself authentically. Who are you?
Like I said, Haitian Bostonian is like my thing. It's my culture. I was born and raised here in Boston, Dorchester to be exact.
Okay.
But I was led by a family which consisted of my mother and my grandmother. They were the head of the households. So very much the culture was around me. I still speak Haitian Creole. I eat the food. I'm all about it. I'm very Haitian to the bone. But I also rep Boston. I wasn't so proud, I would say, at one point, but I've learned to really appreciate Boston. I think the more time I spent away, the more I couldn't help but just to be back, and it's home. It's
Yes.
I'll take it.
Also traveled, so you're a pretty seasoned traveler. You've lived, overseas.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I just wanted to do something wild and crazy. I wouldn't say the idea was wild and crazy. It seemed like it to a lot of people. It took a lot of planning, but I just really believed that I wanted to do things in my life, do the things that I dreamt about doing, right? I didn't want to feel restricted, because I think as a single parent, you can often feel that way. Like there's certain things you can't do and you shouldn't do. And, I remember being questioned about like stability for my son, but I knew that it was important for him to see the world as much as possible. I didn't get all over the world, but
right.
Every year we would travel. Like I've taken him to Ireland and London, and we visited Paris several times before we moved there. But New Zealand was very new at the time. Like we'd never been before. Mm-hmm. I was really planning from afar and just waiting to see what we got there when we got there. And I have to say we were so blessed. We met so many interesting people along the way. I linked with families on purpose to find other families that had children his age that he could interact with while we were there. And it was actually through an organization called WOOF, WOOF. I can't remember what the acronym stands for right now, but it's a network that connects you with organic farms all over. And they're an organization all over the world, but I was targeting specifically New Zealand because I just wanted that space of like green and to also really dive into my passion in writing. So that's how I ended up there.
Can you talk because you're a writer, you're a mom, fashionista, you have your own style. You gotta you have your own unique creative style, and you work at MIT too. Yeah. Like I know that's pretty rigorous as well. So you want to talk a little bit about what you do, because that's a lot, juggling 2 toddlers, 2 teenagers, and working at MIT and then doing your own stuff. So
obviously I work because I have to support my family, and I am blessed to work in a great organization, specifically my department. They do research on vaccines. So I'd like to think I have some small part in changing the world, and it's really, it's become even more real for me during this crisis. I'm getting a lot of firsthand understanding of, how people are manufacturing vaccines for the COVID. So that's really interesting. But my primary role there is organizing events and managing their memberships. So it could be tedious at times, but again, I have such a great team that in a very flexible type of environment, like they really honor everything that I do. And I think that allows me the space to pursue the things that I'm passionate about. For example, like my writing and pursuing an MBA right now, like, which is crazy.
Crazy.
While raising 4 kids.
But it's crazy good. You know what I mean?
It is. I definitely am. I love learning. I love reading. I'm really passionate about just constantly figuring things out and figuring out how to keep moving forward. So at times it could be overwhelming, but I think there's so much reward in it. And I just sometimes I have to sit back and say, wow, Karyn, you're doing a lot, but I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of the things I've accomplished and the things I'm continuing to work towards.
Definitely.
I just want to inspire other people. Like, there is no excuse. Like, I remember even some of my classmates, they're like, how do you do it? I'm like, good. Just let me be that reminder for you. Like, if I can do it with 4 kids and all this other stuff going on, that you can do it too. There's really no excuse. Just make it happen. Just try to figure it out. I think, being organized helps. Having the support you need and trust helps as well. So definitely blessed in that way.
For sure. So you look blessed. You look lit. You look everything.
Thank you.
You look great.
Thank you.
We're definitely gonna dive into Mommy's new friend a little bit, but before we dive into that, my ring light is giving off a reflection, but the illustrations are great as well. I wanted to ask, are you related to the illustrator as well?
I'm not.
You're not?
My illustrator, Rodney Sannon, I found through Instagram, actually. He had illustrated a book of someone I follow called Riva Nairi is her name. She's an amazing Haitian artist out of Brooklyn. She does amazing music. She's just artistic in so many different ways. So I've always been a huge fan of hers. And so when she posted, she had a children's book that he had illustrated. I thought I was looking for an illustrator because as you can imagine, the process is not always easy. I had one illustrator in mind, didn't quite work out. So I had to pivot and find someone else. So I was blessed to be led to Rodney. We worked really well together. Plus, he's also a Haitian brother, which means so much to me to have him be a part of this. And it's just been really cool. He's based in New York as well, Brooklyn. He's based out of Brooklyn.
That's good. And that's also, just an example of using social media to your, advantage and intentionally, because a lot of times, people talk about social media being bad or being too much. It can be, we definitely know that, but it's all in how you use it. And if you're using it for creative purposes and, you're writing and getting the messages out to inspire people, you're only going to connect with like-minded people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's so important to just take that chance. I didn't know Rodney at all. I took a chance, and from my perspective, I think, Riva is like on some next level. So I was a bit nervous when I approached him on IG, but he was so warm and welcoming, and it's just been such a great partnership that we've had for years. Like I've been working with him for at least 3 or 4 years, doing all the editing and repackaging and repurposing, and he's just such a great person. So although he's not technically family, I see him kind of like family.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Create your family, for sure.
Right.
So before we get into the nitty gritty of the book and certain examples, I wanted to talk about before you actually took the steps to approach writing this book and the process, it was just you and Molly, your son, you were a single mom for nearly 10 years. Yeah. Can you just talk about where you were in your thought process and your mental state, during that time to what led you, what space were you at that led you to even think about writing this book?
It's so funny. It was writer's block that made me write this book.
Wow.
Like I said, I am an author, so I have some other published work. And I was commissioned to actually turn my research paper on open marriages into a book. Okay. And so I went with my research paper to New Zealand, like, okay, I have a purpose, I have a plan. I'm going to go to this other country. I'm going to create the space to just let the writing come to me. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't hitting at all. Like I wasn't connecting with the topic. Something just wasn't, I don't know what it was. It wasn't settling in my soul. I would try to sit down and write it and it just wasn't coming out. So, I can't even remember the exact moment I pivoted, but I remember sitting in a coffee shop in New Zealand and this idea came to my mind. At that time, I wasn't dating. I just started imagining, like, what would it be like to introduce my son to someone who I really, really want, like really am seriously considering, and what would that conversation look like? And then a light bulb went off too, because it's like, okay, yay, I have an idea and I think I have enough, like it could be small enough of a project that I could get done while I'm here. Because I was only in New Zealand for like 3 months. So I didn't want to come back empty handed. So I remember going to all the libraries in New Zealand with my son, looking at all the children's books. Mind you, I've never written children's books before, but I was going and counting pages, searching different topics around this to see, does this topic even exist? And I couldn't find anything. And I'm like, okay, 24 pages, I think I can handle this. What size should the font be? Like, I was thinking about all of that.
Doing that market research, girl.
I did research. I did a lot of research and just really dove into my frame of like, okay, I'm going to write this children's book. And I think being a mom was enough to validate that I could, right? And it was an experience that, I mean, I hadn't had at that point, but I felt like I had a right to talk about, because here I am raising my son. How would I have that conversation with him if I were to have that conversation with him? How would he feel? And so that's where I wrote it. And my son, just again, from tagging along with me to the libraries and everywhere I went, because, it was just the two of us out there. I presented him the idea, and he started kind of like editing the voice of the child. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna put you on this project with me. I'm gonna have to give you your credit, because he really helped me do that. So
at the time you weren't dating anybody or anything. You just kind of said to him like, okay, how would you feel? Like you started asking him the questions.
Right. Like, what do you think? I mean, I had dated.
Right.
I had dated people, but nothing really serious to the point where I had actually, formally introduced them as like, this is my boyfriend. I might have had people that he saw in passing, and I'm like, yeah, that's my friend. It's my homie.
Yeah.
It was really pointed in terms of like, all right, what do you think you would say, or how do you think you would feel if I was dating someone seriously? And that's where he was able to say like, no, I don't think the kid would feel this way or say these things or think these things. And so my headspace at the time, again, I wasn't imagining. I was just imagining. I was really working from an imaginative place. I was fully settled on the idea that maybe I'll never find someone, and it'll just be me and my son. And
boy, were you wrong.
Exactly.
How long was it before you found your husband after writing the book?
Funny thing, like I officially had met my husband right before I left for New Zealand, but I just met him like at a random party. And I remember thinking like, nah, no new friends. I'm about to leave this country. And he was just like, nah, let's just keep in touch on Facebook. Cool. And again, not even thinking about him on a dating level, nothing. Was not interested at all. But we made that connection before New Zealand. And when I came back from New Zealand, my birthday came up, and he sent me a message on Facebook saying happy birthday. And I was like, oh, you remembered me. And okay, that's what's up. And we just started hanging out. We started chit-chatting and keeping in touch through that summer. But another thing that happened to me while I was in New Zealand is I had the epiphany like, okay, I'm doing this crazy thing. I'm gonna keep this ball rolling. I always wanted to live in Paris. So I'm going to go back home, wrap up my life, and move to Paris. So that's what I came back from New Zealand with. Was my intention to just wrap up everything for real, and move to Paris. So that whole summer I spent wrapping up my life, getting ready to move to Paris, is this summer I spent with my now husband. And we were just kicking it. We were just friends. So there was no pressure at all, because I knew this was it. Like, I'm leaving. I'm moving to Paris. Like, we can hang out.
Yeah. I'm gone.
Yeah, but I'm out.
Exactly. So it's nice to have that, kind of, backdrop that, you had met him, but it was nothing, like you didn't have it in your mind that it was really going to be anything. No. So, and the fact that it happened, I really just want you to talk about the book process and how it manifested, you know, how it manifested the relationship and how it manifested just kind of everything working smoothly too, because, you know, you come as a package when it's just you and your son. And then for somebody to be intertwined with, you know, someone else and kind of joining that package, it can be a lot, you know, on you. And I'm sure it can be certain dynamics that are challenging, you know, for you. So just talk about the process of writing the book and then how it felt for you to manifest the relationship out of the writing of this book.
So again, I wrote it really out of imagination. I wasn't in a place where I was even thinking, wanting, needing a man at all. And I think that's really the premise of how my husband and I came to be, because that's something that we often talk about is like, there was very little pressure. There was just no pressure. And it allowed us to really be organic. Right. And, you know, I think part of what manifested, I didn't even realize it manifested until like maybe later on when I started like pulling it together and the images are coming out. And I'm like, wow, like I kind of like, this is so cool to think back and realize like I wrote this before I knew I'd have someone, and here he is now, right? Yeah. Again, the way I approached my relationship with my husband was just very authentic, very organic. There was no preconceived notions necessarily. And I think that was the beauty of it. That's what it allowed it to be what it is that we just had no pressure and no real set ideas. It was just simply we respected each other, we enjoyed each other's company, and the more we enjoyed each other's company, the more we wanted each other's company. And then I had to leave. And then I pieced out and I moved to Paris, and I spent several months in Paris apart. And I think it was while we were away while I was away in Paris, that we realized that there were stronger feelings there. And so it just made the transition back much easier. And again, I had started with a different illustrator at first, and then that, like, it's just been, let me take a step back with you. This has been a 7-year process. This book was originally written in 2013 when I was and I just published it this year. So I had gone through so many struggles, so many points where I doubted it could even be. I doubted that I had the right to write a book. I doubted every step of it. And it almost felt like the universe was just working against me. But I just knew deep down inside of my soul, like, this story has to come out. Like this, I know this will inspire other parents. You know, like, I just imagined, I really held on to the message. And the message for me was really about giving parents hope that there could be someone special that can come into you and your child's life. And I also wrote it with a lot of innuendos that kind of suggest some things about how to best approach that, you know. Yes. You saw that when you read it, but you know, the mother taking some time alone with her with him outside of her relationship to just really get to know him as an individual before she decides to introduce him, right? I made those suggestions. I also made the suggestion that, you know, your kid is most likely not going to be okay with this, and they're going to most likely think like, this person is threatening my relationship, and they're going to get a little insecure about it all. And so I wanted parents to understand that too. It's like, just because you're excited about this man doesn't mean your kid is going to be excited about him too, or see the value that you see in this person. So that's okay, but hear them out and respect their feelings and respect their process and how they process it. And another thing I thought was important was making sure that the meeting happened outside of their home, neutral territory, so that the threat was really a lot less.
Right.
So that was kind of my process. And again, all of this psychological process of it and thoughts and that went into it was prior to what and ended up happening. It was just purely my imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And which is great. I think it was good because it didn't influence my book one way or the other, right? I didn't write this book based off of necessarily my stuff, but it also kind of prepared me and my son for what ended up becoming our lives, right? Because he's writing this, he knows, and it reminded me too to listen to him and be cognizant of his feelings as we approached it. And when things got really serious with my husband, I already felt like, all right, I kind of know how I'm gonna approach this with him. So.
And that's what I like most about this book, because it serves, because I think me and you are a lot alike, where you take the time to really listen and, you know, to see how your child is really feeling about something, not necessarily the, you know, answer or the thought process that we put on them, but how they actually really, really feel. Because how they really feel, it might not be the same way, you know, that, you know, we want them to feel or what we expect them to feel.
Right.
And it might be like, you know, a bit surprising to us, but at the same time, that's real life. That's their real feelings. And so I think just that message to parents that, you know, talk to your kids about, you know, what's going on, being open to, so that they can ask questions and feel comfortable to ask questions. And so this process of you including him in this, you know, co-authorship, I just think is so powerful, because you're learning him in the process and he's learning you. So you guys went through this process together, and then it's just like that was like the first foundational step to this new life, you know, to this new blended family life. And I just think that's so powerful for any mom or dad, you know, parents. Just a reminder that your kids have feelings too, you know what I'm saying? And
right. But I also say too, like, because I know, for example, some of my friends who went through, you know, bringing their families together, blending their families. And sometimes the kids are like downright like refused. They're like, no. And I would always encourage them, just reassure them, just be reassuring, because your kids have to trust you. You have to, you know, and part of that is both you and your partner earning their trust, showing them that I think the premise of love, like love will never lie. Like it just, if you stand firm in love, I think it just permeates, right? Like they can't help but deny, because as soon as pretty soon they'll start realizing, like, man, if I don't join the bandwagon, I'm gonna be left out of all this goodness. Like there's no, you know, the openness that, and I always say that too, like be open with your kid, you know, age appropriately, but be open with them and show them that you're not perfect, you're figuring it out. But I think when you lead with love, it always wins. Like it always works out. That's my intention. So I just don't want parents to feel too discouraged too, like by listening into their kids, and if their kids are like, nah. Understand, like dig that up, understand where that's coming from, because sometimes they just have a loyalty to their other parent, and they feel like I got to give up my father to gain this new person in my life, and that's not necessarily the case.
And also just taking that time to listen to them too, it takes the pressure off of them feeling like they have to be in the middle, you know, to pick and choose. And when you're just like honest and open and listening, it creates it's not so much a burden anymore. So you know, I see we have some people tuning in, they're saying great advice. I agree with that. Wow, keep pressing in, and congrats on your new book. And I just think right now it would be good to just kind of reinforce some of some of the messages that you wanted to get across in your book, and maybe talk about like a favorite moment in the book of yours that you have. We don't want to give it all away, because
I won't give it away, but definitely there's the underlying story. There's a part in the book, and I remember it was a very contentious point between me and my son when we were writing it. Like, he was really like against me putting this part of the book in it, but I really wanted a reaction. And I thought, again, when I wrote it, I was imagining a child reading it with their parent. This to me it's supposed to be like a connection point, right? Like, this is it, although there's a main character and you mostly hear his voice and where he's coming from, it's very much about the bond and connection between him and his mom. And I imagine a mom and her child reading this together, either as a launching point. Maybe the mom has been dating, has someone in mind that they're getting serious about, and they want to like approach their kid for the first time with this. They don't know how, so they'll start off maybe reading this book, or maybe it's already happened and they want to laugh about and revisit how they became a blended family, things like that. I think that's the premise of that. But there is definitely the most like a funny. I like to think it's funny. My son thinks it's embarrassing, but my favorite part of the book. It's the book that I feel like I'm trying to get a reaction, and I think that's when I hope that the kids really connect with the character and see like, look. Not only is it the point that they could connect with the character, but it's the point that they start to also connect with the idea that this person coming into their life may not be a threat.
Yes, for sure. Well, it definitely has that climax, and you're definitely gonna, when you get the book, you'll definitely have the reaction. You'll see exactly what
you'll know what I'm talking
about. And where can you find the book, Karyn? Where
it's available on Amazon right now. Or you can just go, I have a website for the book called mommysnewfriend.com. That also links directly to Amazon. But if you go to Amazon and search my name, Karyn Glemaud or Mally Glemaud, it'll come up. And it's up there now.
I just put it in the comments too, mommysnewfriend.com. So people can go there. So now, okay, so you guys have written the book, you've met your husband, you realized that you met him before, but you wasn't thinking like that, but it manifested into a relationship. You guys got married. So now, then you guys have kids, right? So
we've had more. We've grown. It's like, it seems like overnight, but I would say over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we grew exponentially. We now have an adopted son who's my husband's biological nephew. And we also, I birthed 2 more children. I have a 3-year-old Jojo and a 1-year-old Maxwell. Ooh. And then Diane is my oldest, my adopted son. So we're just doing it. It's
first crazy. Of all, how has that been since COVID? I just want to, quarantining, because it's hard.
Quarantining has been real. Well, the teenagers, I don't see them unless they're hungry or if they want something. Like, they're in their rooms for the most part doing their thing. They were still in school towards, until mid-June. So besides me like barking at them to make sure they got their assignments done, right. They didn't bother me too much. But my little ones, they're like so elated to have me and my husband home all day, every day. So we also live with my mother-in-law, who's been such a great support. She's been the main caregiver for them. So when we were working in our offices, she would be home with them. But I think when we started working from here, those lines blurred real quickly, real fast. So, so it's pretty tough sometimes, but I am so happy that I have, again, all of the spaces that I'm working with, they understand my situation. They know that I have children and they welcome it, actually. Like my coworkers know that if I'm in a meeting, they might pop up and say hi. They totally are understanding. So that's we figured out. Sometimes too, my husband and I will switch off. We'll I'll send him downstairs with the kids, and I get to do my meetings.
And everybody's been safe and
Oh, thank God. Thank
oh
God.
my God.
It was really real at some point in Boston, but we're
Right.
good. All my family, I haven't lost anyone close.
That's good. Thank God for that.
Mhm.
And so now that you're, in the blended family, you've seen the manifestation, what what are some challenges, and you can speak generally, what are some challenges of having a blended family, because it's obviously some advantages, and you found great love, and you guys are a blended family, you got the
Yeah,
village to
we're
kind of
happy. Yeah, we're all happy.
help you, but we
All
know
healthy. I think definitely together with my partner, we've been able to accomplish so much more and give so much more to our children. And to be able to even have children is something I never even imagined I would even ever do, was have more.
right.
But it works really well in a lot of ways. My husband is my partner. My partner. We're really like teammates, and we try to approach this on the same level as much as possible. I think the biggest challenge, of course, is just um, the changing dynamics. For 10 years of my son's
Mhm.
life, he was used to just me and him. His father is very much part of the picture, but again, we've been separate for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Of his life. And so he was used to just like, okay, go to dad and deal with mom. And now adding my husband, a stepfather, it's like, okay, now you have three people to answer to, and you got to convince three people to, allow you to do whatever you want to do. And of course, that got more challenging as my son got older and into his teenage years. So, um, I think the other thing that came up is realizing that we had a very different parenting styles.
Mm.
um, as you can tell, I was always like, I encourage my son to be open and communicate. I encourage him to question me and question everything. I encourage him to also negotiate. I'm always trying to get him like, okay, if you want to make something work, like you can negotiate. You can offer, like, let's give and take here. Let's see where we can come to the middle. My husband just couldn't get with that because he was born and raised in Haiti, so his culture, he's very much a product of what I was a product. My mother was also very much a very strict Haitian, you know, school, church, home
Mhm.
type. And you don't question parents, but I didn't like that experience for myself. So I wanted to do it differently with raising my son. And it came at times it could be difficult to get my husband to be on the same page as me, to understand like um he might see it as disrespectful when my son asks why can't I not da, 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 da.
Right.
And to be honest, sometimes I don't have the patience either to be like having to answer every single time. But I definitely think that was one of the biggest challenges, is like our parenting styles, and um, my son getting used to the dynamic of having to answer to one other person, and
Mhm.
the other person being a lot more traditional than
Right.
myself, right?
Yes.
Um, and I think the other dynamics continue with, you know, when you add my adopted son, Diane, who um, I think he was also very threatened by the relationship that Mally and I had. Again, I raised Mally, so
Right.
he knows what to avoid. He knows how to come at me. He knows how I roll. We have this dialogue, and it's a lot easier. And I think for my adopted son, he saw it as like, oh, I was favoring Mally more.
Mhm.
And it's still something that we continue to work on, but just finding our own dialogue and creating our own unique way of communicating. But I'm proud to say that even at this point, he knows like it's funny because they all know to come to me if they want it to get away with something, like they feel like it's easier to talk to me than to my husband, because my husband, of course, is a lot more traditional, a lot more strict. So I'm proud to see that, like Diane is very comfortable coming to me to talk about like his personal stuff, like if there's
That's
or if
good.
he wants he wants to ask a question about something that he knows his dad's gonna shut down, he'll come to me first. So those are like the ups and downs, but
you seem to be handling them well. You seem to be handling
I could be better.
I mean, we all can, but you gotta celebrate each step, you know.
Yeah, I definitely think for the most part, there's so much love. That's the premise of our house. Of our house. Like I think, even though my teenagers will cringe, like my husband and I, we're very affectionate towards each other.
That's good.
And by affection, I mean like every morning, hugs, hi, love you, remind me. I love saying I love you to all my kids and to everyone in the house, and taking a moment to just sit down. I remember like during quarantine, I asked everyone like, okay, let's just have a sit down and just powwow how we're feeling, and let's go around and say one good thing that we appreciate about everybody. And I remember when I was calling the meeting, they're like, what happened? What's wrong? I'm like, no, it's like I just want to stay positive. I want us to make sure we're good. So I always try to just lead with that, and
lead with love, and the rest will follow, right? That's
exactly.
the first things that you said. So yeah, it's just about, leading with love. And when you lead with love, that's where all the things come in, like the listening, taking
the forgiveness. Forgiveness is such a huge thing too. Like I'm that's another thing I think my husband and I had to teach my husband a little bit more. It's like, it's okay to admit when you're wrong as an adult. Like it's not a sign of weakness to say to someone, yeah, I messed up. You're right. Like I shouldn't have yelled at you that much, or I should have heard you out. I try to, when we're having heated, debates or arguments with the kids or something, I try to just walk away, give it a moment, and then reapproach them and say like, let's talk this through. Let's figure it out. Let me apologize, and let you apologize. Like, where could we have done this better and things like that. So
yes,
I think the art of blended families is just really being open and being honest. It's the way to navigate any relationship, to be quite honest. It's like, just be authentic, be forgiving of yourself and others. And
yes. No, and two things, like just, from the transition from single motherhood to the blended family, there has always been a co-parenting aspect with that. Co-parenting as a single, mom, when it's just the kid you guys share, with Molly's dad, and then there's a whole nother new person. Right. And now, I'm pretty sure they sometimes, Molly's dad and now your husband have to speak at some point or be around each other. How does that work? And like, if a mom is going through that, what is the best way to navigate those things?
I mean, again, I think I'm blessed to say, well, two things. I think before my husband became a part of the picture, I really made it a conscious effort to be, very cordial, respectful, and build despite times when it's like really challenging. And it could I just wanted to let go of anger and stuff. Like I just wanted to really be able to work well with Mally's dad. And it took a lot of time, but I think I got to a good place with him before my husband came into the picture. So that was important. It's just like, letting go of certain things, like, and understanding what you can control and what you can't control. And the truth is, you can always control how you react.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
That's the one thing I can
big one.
How I react. So I think just trying my best to be a co-parent, a fair and honest and genuine co-parent, and communicating with my ex and letting him know, and at times trying to partner with him when we were facing challenging times together. So when my husband came, I think by the time my husband came in, we were in a good place, and it got better because I think he actually likes my husband better than he likes me.
Isn't that funny?
Again, we're lucky. My husband's he's a very chill, approachable guy. I think most people who meet him, feel he's really cool and laid back. So my husband and my son's father get along really well, just fine. And I know that's not always the case, but I think I'd like to believe that I had a part in creating that.
Of course you did.
That foundation where there was really no tension, no hate, and we were just like, look, we both love our child. We want the best for him. Let's do whatever we can individually to create, the best opportunities for Mally. So
I think it is important to note that, you're actually given that consideration, because some people, they're thinking like how you said in the beginning, like, I'm just dating and I'm happy about this guy and I'm happy about everything that I'm doing. And even though there's other people involved and I come as a package, I'm not really considering any of that. I just want to act on my feelings, And so the fruit that you have seen now, it's because of the work that, like, the pre-work that you put in, even with this, you know what I'm saying? So I just think that, it's powerful that you kind of created your life. You kind of, I want this. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I know I want it to be fruitful and healthy. You know what I'm saying? Not just to have a man or, you want it to be healthy. You want it to be fruitful. And so with anything, you have to do the work. And so
the work really starts with you.
Yeah.
Because I think we have this idea, like, I have a list of what I want the man to be. What is your list for yourself? Like, what are you bringing to the table? And that's one of the things I always felt too, is like, I never wanted to be in a relationship or in a position where I felt like someone was doing me a favor, like, by being with me and my son, and that, because I have kids, it's a burden, or I have a child, this is a burden. And anyone who saw it that way, they were quickly shown the exit. Like, anytime I felt that I wasn't going to try to force anything. I wasn't going to force anything. I didn't need someone. I was totally content with the life I was creating for me and my son. I think sometimes when we're in that mindset, the universe will just bring you a surprise. And I'm not going to lie, it was tough even at first for me, because I was so used to being like this strong, independent woman. I don't need no one. That, I think I put my husband through the ringer a little bit in the beginning, but he was patient. And I think all the work he put in also is the reason why I love him so much. He was very patient with me. And again, we communicated through everything. Times when I'm like, okay, I know that came from, like, me talking to you or me behaving this way is my insecurity speaking. You have to really know yourself and how to take inventory and own up to your stuff. And that dialogue we constantly had. Like, when I call myself out, he called me out, I call him out. Like,
it's true love, though. It's got to be held accountable,
And it's work too. I think too many people too approach relationships with the idea that it's just supposed to be this thing, like it's supposed to come fully packaged and like set it and forget it. No, it's something you work towards. It's something you continue to work on. And my husband and I still have conversations about, like, how can we prepare ourselves for the times that might get tough, or the times that might get challenging. Are we going to be the next Will and Jada? And if so, what would we do?
Those are good. Those, like, hypotheticals, I've always been like a hypothetical, even as a child, well, what if this happened? And it's just like, forethinking and just kind of planning if that did happen, because you just don't know.
You never know. So you hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Exactly.
Hope for the best, put your best foot forward, but
yeah, what a question that came to mind was, for a woman, for a mother, you know, who may be dating someone or maybe not dating someone, but they're thinking about, you know, wanting to do that and getting what are some, because you have said, and you know, referenced your husband a lot, and you're like, you know, we're partners, and you know, my husband was patient with me, and also what are some signs, you know, for some single moms who may be dating and they, you know, you just want to see if it's like a right fit for you and your child, like to start a blended family. Like you said, like one thing that he was really patient with you, and that was a thing where you're like,
Yeah,
okay,
patience is
I know
important.
this is for me. And so that work, what should a mom be looking out for, you know?
I'm saying this from experience, but I've heard it said before. I think there's some power in a man who has a good relationship with their mother.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband and his mom are like really close. And I think men who have really good experience, you know, their mother is their first experience to a woman. I think that really defines the way they treat their wife and how they respect their wife, how they view their mothers. I'm not saying that any guy who had a bad experience, but is that person doing the work, you know? And I've seen the difference because I think for Mally's dad, it was evident for me that the relationship with his mother was different, and I think that played into the relationship that I have with him. But it's always, I think that's one of my key things. But you have that gut, like,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna lie. There tends to be a struggle with like, when is it my gut or when is it my fear and my anxiety
Right.
blocking me?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there was a bit of that in the beginning with when my husband and I were getting serious. Like, I'm kind of like anticipating the worst, but I try to check myself. And one of the things I learned from therapy is like to ask yourself, where's the evidence? What's the evidence, right? What's the evidence? And to also communicate openly and be fully to the point where you can't be afraid to hear the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, I think one of the biggest I was lucky that I did this research paper on open marriages, and open marriages is not as simple as people might imagine. It's not the Will and Jada. Right? It doesn't necessarily mean that only, but it very much talks to the point of open communication. And by opening communication, it's a two-way street. Like, are you open to listen? Are you also open? Because it takes courage to hear someone tell you, like, look, you know, I'm not really feeling you right now, or to hear like, oh my God, I'm really attracted to someone else and I'm getting to temptation. And how can you and your husband, how can you and your partner really work through those difficult conversations where they're being honest and telling you like a truth that could be a little like zinger.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you know and have the confidence that the love is there, you'll get through it. You'll work through it. I think that it's just that talking it out and listening, and not only the tough the hard part of saying what you really feel, but listening to what you might not want to hear.
Right. Well, you are doing it, Karyn. You are doing it. So we are about at 4:53. So we got about like, you know, 7 to 10 minutes. So I just wanted to, you know, ask the one last question is like, what what advice would you give? Just any advice that you know you would want to give to blended families, single mothers. Um,
Communication is so important, and being open and honest, and showing that. I think it starts with even like the way you approach your kids.
yeah.
Again, right? So being honest with myself, like being able to show them my scars and say, yo, I messed up here, or man, I made this mistake, or um, you know, it's about celebrating the wins and the losses, because there's just so much you can learn from losing or failing. There's so much you can learn, and I think you got to kind of always take the time to do uh, to reflect, and you know, I constantly do that. I reflect on everything I've done in my life, and some things, okay, how could I have done that better, or You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think, I know I'm all over the place, but
No,
communication for sure.
You're good. It's Monday. A whole bunch of stuff.
Communication for sure.
We just hopped on here and fix this. We're working all day.
Right. Do the work. Do the work to know yourself and to catch yourself when you know you're being like, all right, I have to talk to myself sometimes. Like, all right, Karyn, you're being out of line. And one of the things I love about my husband and I, we have that. Like, we can have a heated moment and just come back almost immediately. Like, we don't like to stay mad for long. We don't do the grudge thing. We usually just take a moment like and come back and either he'll apologize or I'll apologize, and we'll talk about how we could do it differently next time. And just really be open to the process. It's all a process and it's all a journey, and you don't have to get it right all the time. I think you just have to try to be authentic in everything that you do and approach. That's my thing.
Definitely. Yeah. So how's Molly now? How's Molly and your husband now? They're good.
Oh, they're good. We're in a much better place. Molly definitely had a little tough patch of the 15-year-old kid challenge. But he is he's going to be a senior. They're both rising seniors. Him and Diane are rising seniors. Molly landed a cool internship with Dana-Farber. It's called Yes for Cure. It's a great program that introduces a lot of inner city kids to cancer research and the medical field. Molly is interested in studying medicine and is looking at going to an HBCU. And I think now he knows that because college is around the corner, he's getting really serious about everything. So he's kind of doing the things I wanted him to do anyway. So it's really exciting to see him kind of turn that corner where he's starting to understand everything that me and his stepdad have been pushing him towards in the first place. So it gets better.
It does get better, and that's the message.
Tough, but it gets better eventually. So
yeah. So that struggling mom where you're just like, oh, when is this gonna end? It all gets better.
Yeah, but it's cool to see it come full circle. Like, for example, we're talking about college essays, and he's thinking about, writing about all the experiences we had together, where he traveled, where he lived in New Zealand. And I'm like, that's going to be great. Like, you're going to stand out because now you can say you're an author, right? You wrote another book with your mom. You can also say you lived in New Zealand and you lived in Paris and, all these amazing things. So I really want to impart that to other single parents too. Like, I did these things when I was single. You can totally do it. Just take the time to plan and figure it out. And what I also often, I never did it alone. There was a lot of, I think the universe will bring in angels and people that would just show up along the way to help everything come together. So
for sure.
I think if you go with a lot of intention and do some planning and, and be careful. I always want to say that I'm a very careful parent. I'm not one of these parents that felt comfortable leaving my kid with just anybody either. So, definitely use your village, your trusted village, just to get the support you need. But it could be done. It could always be done.
It can be done, and you're doing it. So, and that's what Mommy Mondays is really all about. We're all mothers, but we do things differently, but we have really the same story, at the end of the day. There's no motherhood manual or anything like that. So it's good to build community and have this type of platform to really share. That's what I want to do, share with other moms. Maybe you haven't been through this yet, but there's somebody who has, and here's the blueprint on how you can get over it. Some tools, if they work for you. And if you want to know just how to include your child, listen to your child, if you're dating someone significant, this is a good tool right here.
Great way to start.
Yeah. So if you could just take us through one more time where we can find Mommy's New Friend.
Mommy's New Friend is available on Amazon. You can go to my website, www.mommysnewfriend.com, or you can also follow me on Instagram at Elgador. That's Elgador. That's my grandmother's name. And you can find the link to my website there. So, thank you.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's been a pleasure, and Karyn, you have so many layers. Oh, we got an alarm clock.
Is that me or yours?
I am not even.
Maybe me. Sorry.
Okay. No, you just don't have a lot to give, and I was even when we talked on our little practice tech run, I said, "Oh, we might have to do a part 2 because you just have so many layers and depths that you can, offer to moms in the audience." So we definitely will be doing this again to talk about, maybe co-parenting or family even deeper on, a more deeper level, because this was more about just learning about you because you do so much in the book, getting people to learn about the book and just the messages of the transition from being a single mother to now a wife and a beautiful blended family. So thank you for being on.
Thank you for you and your platform and being another woman of color that's just giving us all a voice. I think it's so powerful when we come together and we share our stories, our wins, our losses, and everything in between.
Yeah, and I just the biggest thing for me when I became a mother, and just the social you digital platform before I became a mother, it was just all about being authentic and being able to be comfortable to share our stories and find that relatability. Like, you're not alone, we share our stories. That's what we learned, that we're not alone. And so that's really what I want to give. And so I know there was somebody out here, as we see in the comments and in the engagement, that, they agree with you. They're going through the same things, or they've been through it, or they're going to go through it. And so I really thank you for all the gems that you have dropped and all the advice. And yes, we will catch this. You can catch the replay here on the Social You Digital Facebook page, on the YouTube page, and I also will be putting some clips up on Instagram and, sharing it away. So one more time, this is Lindsey Briggs. I am the host of Mommy Mondays, a virtual interviewing series weekly where I interview a mom talking about motherhood, the motherhood journey, and life during quarantine, mumming during quarantine.
Yep.
Which is a big thing, the pandemic that we're living through right now. So, but it's so good to see you thriving, Karyn, and we will catch up. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.